Welcome to this MySQL iReport training on database tables and joins. So you're looking at this beautiful cityscape because each one of these buildings is exactly like a SQL table. So for example, over here we have the SO table, and over here to the right we have the PO table, and over here is the SO item table, and here's the SO or the PO item table. And down here is the customer table, and there's the vendor table, and they each have information. Let me introduce you to these buildings. Let's look at the SO table here, and notice as you walk in the door, there's an elevator, and you hop in, and it has hundreds of buttons on it, and you can go up to any floor you want. So let's say you hit button 500, and the elevator takes you up, and it opens the door, and you step out onto floor 500. All right. This is one sales order. Floor 500 has one sales order, and it has all these doors up and down the halls, and they're labeled, and the very first door is labeled ID. And this is true of almost every single table, that the first door is labeled ID. And it happens to be 500. The ID matches the floor. That's what it represents. And this is called the foreign key, which will make sense to you more in a minute. Now, as you walk down the hall, you'll notice there's a door named num. So this is the SO number, which might be 524, or 6120, or it might have letters in it or and stuff. And then there's another one, and the next door is labeled customer ID. And you open it up expecting to see a customer, but all you see is a number, and it's like 12. And you're like, wait, how do I know who the customer is? Because all I see here in the door marked customer ID is 12. Well, to find that out, you're going to have to get back in the elevator and go down and catch an Uber across town and go to the customer table, the customer building, and walk in and hop in the elevator and punch in what floor? 12, because that's the customer ID. And you go up, and the elevator doors open, and you step out, and there's your door labeled ID. Once again, you open it up, and guess what it says? 12, because that's the floor number. This is how you join one table to the next. I mean, you can join tables all kinds of ways, but if you don't get off on the right floor, you're going to get the wrong information. So you have to join it on that foreign key. Get it? The foreign key tells you which floor to get off on in another building, on another table, to get the row that matches. Now, once again, once you get off on customer.id equals 12, so the customer table ID column equals 12. Now you can get anything there. You can walk down the hall, and there's a door labeled name, and you open it up, and you're like, oh, it's Baby Bikes, or whatever this customer's name is. And you walk down some more, and there's an address ID, and you're like, oh, great. Now I have to go over to the address table to find out what the address is. Yes, that's how it works. Let me give you one more illustration. Let's go back to the SO table, the SO building, and say you look at SO, we're on number ID equals 500, so the 500th floor once again. And we want to find the SO items that belong, all the products that we're selling on this sales order. So you go hop in your Uber again, or get on your bike share, and you go across town to the SO item table, and you go up, and you're like, well, which SO item.id equals, relates to that one? Well, in this case, it's not the SO item.id. You don't know which floor. You have to look up in the index and say, I don't know, show me all the floors where SO item.SOID equals 500. Because that's, SO item ID 500 can belong to a completely different sales order than the 500. So, and it just turns out that we have, let's say we have 5 items in this. Let's pretend this SO number 524 has ID of 500, and it happens to have 5 items. So in the SO item table, we're going to have 5 results, 5 different floors, and each one of those floors, once again, is identical. You step out, and it's got an ID, and then it has a product ID, which if you want to go across town to the product table building, then you can go up to floor, let's say SO item dot product ID is 50. So you go to the product table and you say, hey, take me up to floor 50. And you get up and you open up, and then you go to product.num and you say, oh, look, there's the product number. Now, in this case, the SO item table, let me show you this, happens to also have a room, a column named product num. So you don't have to go to you don't have to get the product ID and go across town and go to the 35th floor of the product table and say, oh, it's product.num is BB 2001, because we just happened to copy this into the SO item table. So this BB 2001 is stored in 2 different places. And there are reasons for that, but we won't go into all that. But these are all the things you'll find in the SO item building. All right, if there's a note just on the item, you'll see it there. The product num, how many do we want? We want 30 of this one and 1 of these. You know, how many have we already picked? In this case, we've picked this one, and we can see the status of it. If it's taxable, you know, what tax rate we're going to charge it at, the unit price, total price, etc. And it all comes back to, so let's find that place. Do you remember, if we want to find the SO items that relate to a certain sales order, it's not SO item.id, it's a SO item dot, do you see it? It's right in the middle of your screen now. SOID. So this is floor 28 in the SO table building. So over in the SO, there's only 1 row for an entire sales order. But here in SO item, notice we have how many? 5 different items in the SO table building that all relate back to that single sales order. So there's the basic concept, but let's go over a few more things to just drill this in your head a little more clearly. Let's actually look at the sales order and see if you can guess which tables this information's in. So how about the SO number, 524? Which table do you think that's in? That's right, it's in the SO table, so it's SO.num. How about this status here, fulfilled? Well, there's something got to relate to it in the SO. So this one's SO.statusID, but then you have to go over to the status table and, you know, join that correctly and to get the actual name, fulfilled. Date scheduled, that's SO.scheduled fulfillment date. Allen's Raceway, that's customer.name, and it comes, and we join that through SO.customerID equals customer ID. And then down here, of course, these are all in the SO items table. UPS, that's in the carrier table. And ground, that's in the carrier services table. Let's take a look at a few of these here in actually joining them together. So here we're getting the SO num, and then we're joining it to the SO item table, where we're going to get the product num and how many of those things we ordered. So we start from the SO building, and now we want to join SO item, and we want to get on the right floor. So we say for the SO.ID, like, let's find out what the SO.ID actually is for this one. SO.ID, and we'll alias it SOID. If you want, you can say as, but that's not necessary. Unknown column SO in field list. Oh, look, because I did a comma instead of a period. You have to be precise. If you give your taxi driver the wrong information, they're just going to be lost. They're going to say, that street does not exist. So this SO.ID happens to be 21. And if that relates to the SO item table, to get you on the right floor, SO item.SOID, what do you think it's going to be? That's right, 21. It has to match up. So each of these rows on the SO item table, let's alias that so they don't look the same, has a 21, but on the SO table there's actually only 1 of them, but it repeats every time. And this is why, did I already say this? This is why we have to have separate tables, because if we have multiple items in one table, that relate to only one row on another table. If we didn't separate it out, you'd get duplication all over the place where you don't want it. Let's get the customer name too while we're at it. Customer.name. But watch what happens when I try and run that. So I don't know which floor on the customer table building do you want to go to. So we have to join that. So left join customer on, and by the way, left join, right join, etc. Like we could just join this one because every SO has a customer, but we won't go into that in this video. So customer dot, what's its foreign key? ID equals SO dot what? Customer ID. I'll spell that right. So there it is. It's Allen's Raceway. And what if we wanted to change this instead of SO to PO? Well, it just so happens that the building layout for PO is almost the same, well, it's the same in many ways, as the SO building, and the PO item building is very similar to the SO item table. But for one thing, SOs have products and POs have parts, so we'll have to rename that column. But for the most part, they're very similar. Of course, we don't want to tie the PO item to the SO table. That would make no sense. We'd get off on some floor and say, I don't even know what we're looking at. We can change the aliases here too to not be confusing. And of course, POs have nothing to do with customers. They have vendors. And we're going to have to get a legitimate number because there is no PO 524, but there is a PO 175. So look, there are two PO items that we're buying from Mike's Bikes on PO.num 175, which happens to be PO ID 33. So from here, you can also click through the tables and just practice seeing how things tie together. So how about the ship table? It's got its foreign key ID, which is going to relate to ship item, just like the SO and SO item and PO item. We have ship and ship item. So ship.id, what do you think that relates to here? Ship item dot ship ID. So everything with the ship ID of 1 is gonna relate here. And notice, like for example, here on ship ID 9, we have multiple, about 10, 11 different items on there. So we have 9 rows in the ship item, 9 floors in the ship item building, and only 1 floor in the ship building. So go through and just click on different things and see if you can figure out how they join. And good luck. I hope you crank out 1 million reports and never have an error, even though that's not really going to happen. And anyway, I hope this helps. Good luck.